Okay, and welcome to the Webster Report, the second edition. Ignore the green screen. I just can't get my lighting right. I'm going to have to buy new stuff. It's trouble when you've got an old laptop that you're trying to run a lot of things on. It's the second edition today. I had a nice hour's chat with Gareth Ike earlier. We chewed the fat a little bit, interested in seeing what he's doing now. He seems to be investing a lot of time in iconic.com, and he's making connections. We're making connections. We're using each other's platforms to try and keep things going up, or at least keep a conversation going at the very least. And it was because I'm not very good at interviews. Jason's the better interviewer. He knows how to do that kind of thing. I just talk, and sometimes I can't stop talking. But even though I could sit here and talk on my own for hours, I like something to bounce off. I like other people's opinions, because sometimes if you think you're right and you get a bit more information, it doesn't make you wrong, but it gives you a different perspective. So I wanted people who I've spoken to before, but some I haven't spoken to for a while. Jason, myself, we don't really need much of an introduction. Owen, if he bothers turning up, he won't need an introduction either. But Russell, you and Rachael, I've known you for about 6 years. We've only met there once, and that was in Leeds, which seems a lifetime ago. A lot's happened in your vicinity at that stage. So give us a brief outline of what you're doing and where have you been up to?
Well, I think the last thing that we tried to do was real change at the time with Jason Notter over there. When we pulled away from that, me and Rachael had quite a few life's issues to deal with, namely me losing a lot of sight. So we had to take a bit of a step back from the whole situation. I wanted to continue going out and narrating kind of production so that people could follow on from events like yours, lead it into something else, spiderweb the whole thing. But the issues with the site kind of put a bit of a back curve on everything. I mean, we still do things, personally with people from home, and Rachael takes up most of that, to be fair. But I don't have the eyesight any longer to be that invested any longer, which is a bit of a frustration for me.
I get what you mean.
I want to go back to the green screening, and I think I'm probably going to do that over the next month or so, narrate a couple of pieces. I want to do a piece on China. I want to do a piece on Obama. And I want to do a piece on just generally where we are with this whole structure of what we consider to be conspiracy, the New World Order, how that's coming at us, how it's unveiling itself right now in ideologies, the threat that we're seeing from China. I don't mean China as in the Chinese demographic. I mean the CCP. They're bringing a lot of funding and a lot of financing to what's happening in here in the UK, especially over in. I think China is Bush's New World Order. I think that's where we all need to be looking at the moment. Fine, if you want this globalist ideology, that's great for people. Everybody, you make your own mind up on things, but you've got to be informed of, where the funding's coming from, who's funding, what we're having to pay for this, what's going to come, because we all know everything sounds great in technological terms at the moment. We can do this, we can do that. But in 10 years' time, that phone is going to be telling you when to get up, when to go to work, when to go exercise, when to eat, what to eat. And if you don't, it's going to decreditize you.
They've already tested us. They've already tested us with this over the last 3 months. Let's just get Paul introduced, and Paul can give us an up-to-date view to where he's up to, because it's been must have been a year or so since I spoke to you last, Paul.
Yeah, it must be about a year ago. Used to have some good conversations. I think open conversations.
Oh, your sound's going again, mate.
Yeah, how's that?
No.
I don't know what the story is.
No, you're not coming through, mate. Maybe, do you want to go out and come back in and we'll see if it works again?
Yeah.
Just log out and come back in. I'll boot you back in, mate.
How,
Oh, try again.
are you there?
Yes. Go on. Speak while you can.
Yeah, come here. I haven't chatted to you for about a year. I haven't been doing much. I gave up doing the radio and all that and started doing a little business selling CBD oils and stuff like that, bicarbonated soda, Epsom salts, and giving out a lot of information about the health of the body and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm keeping up to an awful lot of things and listening to a lot of radio stations still when I'd be on the net and stuff. And
Good stuff.
what's going on and all that. But I enjoy sitting back and laughing at a lot of it these days because it's just pure madness. It's like a big circus.
It certainly is. It's gone absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Jason, what do you know from this week?
Yeah, not very much really. Just as much as you know. I watched I watched a lot of it. Your interview with Gareth Icke earlier on. That went pretty well. I thought you did, and don't say I'm a better interviewer than you because I'm not. I'm just.
Well, I don't know how to interview. I just talk to people.
We're not professionals. We're not. I just wanted to before I came on, it crossed my mind that Paul Cotty might have been the guest that was on the show that. Remember the Lost Raconteurs the Lost episode?
Yes.
Was it Paul that was on? Because if it was, I owe him a huge apology. Because I was so embarrassed about it afterwards, and I forgot. I'm pretty sure it were you, Paul. And I meant to tell you I was sorry. I meant to get in touch with you and tell you I was sorry, and then you know what life's like.
Life's happened, Jason. Life has happened.
I was completely embarrassed. Anyway, a full apology from me. But anybody who's listened to my show, our show that we've done, will know that there is a lost episode. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Paul. Mate, do you know what? I actually thought you'd been in touch with Paul about that because I remember you saying I'm going to get in touch with him and apologise. But life happens, Jason. Like Russ has just been saying, he's had some life-changing things. One or two life-changing things in your department, isn't there, as well? So life is life, mate. We've all had this stuff, but where do we want to start with this? I mean, we're always drawn straight to the coronavirus, aren't we? So
you know what you were sorry. You know when you were talking before the show, I thought that when you were talking about how this is going to end and it's going to, whether it's going to end in violence or it's not, and I think it's inevitable, as Mussolini said. Blood alone moves the wheel of history. Perhaps do some on, perhaps just talk about how we feel this is going to end, and then we could talk about, but it's your show. You talk about what you're sorry.
No, this is a conversation, so let's just talk. Let's do that. Russell was talking about where he thinks it's got to go to violence, whereas I'm on the same page as you, Jason, where it's inevitable that it has to go there, but. For people who are buying into this, I think they're taking a different path, but that change has still got to happen. Somebody's got to do it.
I think we've been here for 20 years because we don't want that option of violence. That's certainly why I've been doing what I've been doing, because we know we've predicted this for 20 years to people, as much as they want to think. The violence thing, though, it isn't what I think, to be fair. All you need to do is look at the history books. And it'll show you exactly where this is going in every one of those rises and falls over the thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It'll show you conclusively where this thing ends. We've got a start date and we've got an end date. You know, all we have to do is avoid that collision. If we avoid that collision, there is a utopia out there because the technology is out there. The technology, and I think this is what the elite are afraid. This is why they need to compartmentalize us all into something, is because they're afraid of the technological freedom that it will give to everybody, because it's our kids that generate that freedom, not their kids. It's our kids through the genetics, through the births, every year. Further we move forward. And that's what they're scared of, because we're at that technological point now where in human history, we can be self-sufficient if we choose so. We can be self-sufficient on that technology. We don't need everything else. And that's what
we don't.
But I think history will dictate the terms of what happens, and it will lead into violence, I'm afraid.
Well, out of that violence, they'll get whatever organ, you know, what their solution they'll bring into the chaos. And as we can quite clearly see, the Chinese surveillance 5G grid, I know what you're saying about the CCCP, but we'll just call them China for now, because I like the word China. I like the word.
Just talk. Yeah.
So it's for me, how I looked at this stuff, because the 5G thing has impacted on this Corona thing in a poor way, because it's allowed people to buy into the fear, because people are using the 5G. Because people were saying at one point that 5G was spreading the virus, and that was meaning anybody who was talking about it, that meant that's what they believed. Now, for me, if I'm sat in a 5G surveillance grid feature with all those microwave radiations, there's a good possibility I could get radiation poisoning, which would present itself as flu-like symptoms, where my body would then think it's infected. It would generate bacteria looking for this infection, can't find it, sets a virus going that it can't find an infection because it's external. So therefore, the body would defend itself to death. If the hyperimmune response that is happening with some people, some subjects that have had the flu vaccination, you could well have, in theory, a mass population death, because the body would just defend itself to death.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're in Leeds, and we're in an area where we haven't got 5G yet, and you know, people have had allegedly coronavirus. So,
but haven't we all had flu? Haven't we all had a coronavirus at one point?
The political concern for me, Paul, with 5G is that I'm afraid that China has been memeing the hell out of the West. I think it's had meme armies, you know, propagandizing us, especially with Facebook and especially with Google. It's been propagandizing. Not everything's a lie, but everything has lots of different context now. You know, and it's now all debatable. Everything up there, which never leads to conclusion, because everything's a debate. You know, the worry for me with China and 5G is that China memes us to the hell out of us in order so they can get the rollout of it, because whoever controls this technology will control the future of global politics or of global economics or of
that's why when you mentioned if the American economy keeps going, I know that China have own 80% of America's debts. So all this global thing, and again, I still shudder to use that word.
They might not, because Trump has used the coronavirus pandemic and all the refinancing he's had to do as an opportunity to refinance the nation's debts on a 0% or near enough 0% interest rate.
Okay.
He's refinanced the national debt. So China.
Where can I look at that? Where can I look at that, Rach? Because I've seen Russ go on his tirades on Facebook, and I can't find all the Trump stuff to say, oh yeah, I can see that, I can see that. I can see the ethos and I can see the theory that it's not presenting itself physically just yet, because everything's in balance. Everything is in perfect balance.
This coronavirus
I think
press
I can.
conferences.
I think I can. Sorry, I think I can explain this if you don't mind. I think I can explain this. My site doesn't allow me to use all those websites anymore. I used to be like everybody out there in the truth movement, you know, going from this site to this site to this site to this site, looking for all those jewels, all those. That's it. Gotcha moments. Gotcha moments. But then when I lost a lot of my site, that had to stop because I was. I just couldn't get through it. You know, headaches, problems. Couldn't get through it. So when you say, where do I find all this stuff? Now, for me, I have to go and listen to all this stuff. So you can't find it in websites. You can't find those nuggets. You can only find it in contextual conversations, in conversations that you heard things months ago, you're now seeing things months ago, you're now seeing things in the future. So when you listen to the thread of a conversation that goes on, say, for 4 years, as I have with Trump, there's a lot more context in there.
I've seen them.
Because of a relationship to what I've heard here, who I've listened to here. So you can put more context, but you're never going to find it in MSN.
I get that.
Rachael goes a lot through most of the policy, you know, and then we just sit and mull through this stuff, don't we? We sit and break it down and see.
But that bit about refinancing, Trump said that and during one of his press conferences. I don't know if it's a particularly coronavirus update. It might have been one that he was talking about the stimulus bills. But he said, views this opportunity of refinance the national debt. So he didn't say China doesn't own any of it, but he's refinanced. So China possibly doesn't own 80% of the national debt now.
I'm not a Trump fan, bro. I just can't watch an innocent man be removed from office. I mean, some people are quite willingly hanging at the moment, but I can't watch an innocent man when I see
that's ridiculous.
The politics underneath. You know, I don't see the MSN politics. I see the bills. I see what we hear what's going on in the hearings. We hear what's going on. You know, that is very different to what is happening in an MSN world. It's a very different world of information. Contextually, just
we don't even bother reading the press, really. Not
worlds apart.
No, it's a lot to take in, but we've got to start a conversation about it. Paul, what's your take on it?
First of all, can you even hear me?
If you speak up a bit.
Is the sound all right in that, yeah?
It's low, but I can hear you better. Can you hear him, Jay?
I don't know what's up with this. Sorry for this.
It's a bit low. It's just a bit low.
It is. It's very low, that.
Go low.
Can I do anything with that, Jason? My end. Can I turn his audio up?
There isn't really anything you can do. I think it's. Have you put some headphones on that haven't got a mic on, and on a device? I think that's probably what it is. I know you can tell you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, you're booming. You're blowing my ears out. You.
I'm sorry about that. I'll move my mic away.
No, that's perfect. I meant it was a good thing. I meant.
Oh right, okay.
I apologise.
Well, Paul's sorting his sound out, Jason. What do you think of the stuff you've picked up on with the? Because we have had a little chat about the QAnon stuff, and we've seen the Jasara, and we've talked about this, and we've tried to see how this is coming about. Russell's just joined a few dots with me mentally, where I can see what is going on. I can see the plays going. This is a grand chessboard after all. What troubled me, Jason, was I don't know if we've talked about this, but what troubled me was the banks of prime bailiffs ready for October in this country. They've signed up brand new bailiffs because they're going to need a lot of them, because it's the end of the mortgage holiday in October. and they're going to foreclose and land grab of and property of everything, because businesses who took the mortgage holiday and people who've been furloughed aren't going to have jobs to go back to. I'm afraid that's what I'm afraid of, because I just it seems it's with how the general public have reacted so insanely to this, they could do anything, couldn't they?
Well, I mean, they could, like you said, they could do anything to us, and it seems like we'd take it. We've been told that we can't assemble in more than 6, I think. So who's the 7th guy? Which one gets the fine or whatever? And if there's 7 of you together, which one gets the fine? Do you draw straws, or does the copper just find the lot of you? And there's just so much ambiguity amongst the whole thing that it gives people confusion. And while people are confused, they're not able to think right. So they're confused about how far they can go ahead and how far they can be to somebody. How far should I be sat away from that person who's in the doctor's surgery, or how should I do this? And yet, you see, what they're not thinking about is hang on a minute, I've got my mate Flo down road. We were told this was going to kill us all. But my mate Flo, who lives down road from me, she's 96 and she's fit as a fiddle. Doesn't have a flu jab, and we were told that everyone's going to die. She's still there. I don't know anybody that's died of it. I saw something tonight about a 13-day-old baby that died again with coronavirus. It doesn't say off coronavirus; it just says with. So again, that's ambiguous. That's the news companies covering themselves from being accused of telling lies, because they'll say, well, actually, this baby didn't die of COVID-19, but it just happened to have it, probably because it were born in a hospital, and it were passed on. I mean, I don't know. I don't even think it's a real thing. I think the second wave is the one. I'm beginning to think the second wave is the one where we're going to start seeing casualties. Mass casualties, and I think this has just been like a test. It may well be, or it may just be the end of our freedom as we know it. I've seen such insane things as booths, going round tables at pubs and stuff like that. These plastic things. There's 2, so you sat there, nobody's touching each other. All that's just ridiculous.
Latest one today that I posted is that when the pubs reopen, Jason, they're going to scrap the 2 meter rule, providing you leave the pub after 90 minutes.
So you can't get it in 90 minutes then?
So does that mean if you nip out for a vape, does your 90 minutes start again? Go on, Ross.
Get an electric to follow that. How would you get an electric to follow that rule? I mean, what next?
Well, that's the beauty, isn't it? This is the cognitive dissonance, what they've started. Do you remember? Go to work, don't go to work. Catch a bus, don't catch a bus. Use an elevator, but look at the wall. Use a car, but don't look at each other. Hairdressers can now open, but they've got to cover up and not speak. And all that makes people go like this until they get to the point where you just tell them what to do, and they do it.
We've seen them comply. We see them every day when we go to the. I mean, it annoys the shit out of me. I've got to say it, and I don't think I've socially complied with any of it.
Well, it's to do with his eyesight, because he hasn't got any perception of social distancing. So I'm forever pulling him back in case somebody has a go at him about being too close.
I am worried about because for me, in my mind, I've just seen the aged killed off, many of the vulnerable. I've seen some. I think it's been accounting, because he seems very, very localized to a certain demographic of society. I think that's what's gone on there. They don't want to pay pensions out. But
that's definitely right. That's definitely right. They have made a major attack on the elderly. Vernon Coleman has put quite a few good videos out this week. He's dictated everything that's going on. It's just unbelievable what we're allowing him to get away with, Russ.
people don't want to get too comfortable. You know, like people like me with an incapacity. Are they going to go next? Who's going to go next? Are we just going to left with the kids? You know, a workforce? Because that's
they don't want a nation of thinkers, Ross. They told us that a long time ago.
Yeah.
No, they want a nation of bank accounts. They want a nation of bank accounts. They just want to keep their money machine rolling. It's everything. We've had everything destroyed because of liberalism and liberal money. You know, and it's all been blamed on everything else. You know, like identity politics. Everybody's a racist. Everybody's a big. No, it's liberalism. It's those people. You know, that are like the Bushes, like the Clintons, that have been pushing for their agenda. I'm afraid we've been
sorry, my cat's decided to play in my filing cabinet. Knobhead. And Paul, can we hear you yet?
If you look at the yearly averages for the last 3 years compared to this point now, the additional deaths are only about 4,000 additional deaths on the yearly.
Exactly.
Average.
Exactly, but I've got to be an idiot when I present that evidence to people, because if I'm right, that means their life is based on quicksand. And it's always been the same, Russ, since I did that talk at Leeds. It's always been the same, that you can't present people with evidence, because when you say you're ignorant to something, people think I'm calling them stupid. But it's like, if I put this pen behind my back, you're ignorant to the fact I've got a pen until I show you the pen. If you then say you've not got a pen and you refuse to look at it, ignorance becomes stupidity, like that.
I swear, I find that every day online. Ignorance becomes, and sometimes, to be fair, I get dragged into it myself. But that's how it is. You know, if you want a message across, you're going to have to fight to get it across. And just because somebody that can't be bothered putting in any work to any of the dialogue that they're putting out there, and some of it I find quite dangerous towards people's lives, quite neglectful in a way.
Exactly. Paul, have we got you yet?
A little thought into what we put out, but otherwise it just becomes a shit fest of gossip. And how does anybody get arrested? This has always been my problem with the issues with child protection, is that nobody can get near any protection or any security for speculation. It was always the same in those camps. It was always a very speculative environment. Everybody had different agendas, other than what the agenda was specifically set up, likes and shares, rather than getting the problem solved. I think we see all these kids now, demonstrating and writing, and I feel for them, because they're being used at the moment, because groups like that, there are police informers in there. There are special interests in those groups causing trouble. And a lot of the kids in Britain today are going to fall into this identity politics, think that they're out protesting racism. And then some police officers are going to shoot somebody at the side of them just to get the media story. And then it all kicks off.
Yeah, it's
That's
very easy.
Get away from the violence, because
it's very easy to do, but for me, I agree what you're saying about that we could maybe head it off, but I don't think that's the way this reality is going to pan out. That, for me, for me, it's end times. That you're talking biblical stuff. Even people who've never even read a Bible, when I point out to them that the fella whose company's got the patent for the coronavirus that's mutated into this, he's now going to offer us a vaccine, but he's also going to offer us a digital chip that will have all our biometrics and our financial details, and we won't be able to buy or sell. I remember reading that in a very old book, and they're either pushing that prophecy or it's just happening.
He's not even a doctor.
Exactly.
He can't get rid of viruses with his own operating systems. How the hell is he going to do the vaccine?
Well, he gave us an operating system, then he created a virus, and then he gave us antivirus, just like what he's doing with us now. And now he wants us. Now he wants us to have biometric technology, possible nanotechnology, that is going to make us part of the 5G tower system. So we'll be an antenna as well as everybody else. I don't think, even with all the technology we were talking about, Russ, I don't think that's a good way to go, because if we do that, we go to, want a better way of putting it, the Georgia Guidestones. We go to that. So I think that's the only thing that we could actually head off. I think there's something's big's coming.
The technological era.
It is. Paul, have we got you yet?
I think it can be whatever we make.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah, I think it can be whatever we make it. You know, I don't necessarily feel that we have to be trapped into this one world.
No, we've got some movement to do. We can move about in the box. Paul, I suggest come back out of it. Come out of the studio and reconnect, and we'll see if it works that way. It sometimes works on Raconteurs, doesn't it, Jace?
Right, go on, I'll do that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
I can hear you now. I can hear you.
It'll cut out again.
Right, Paul, you've heard us chatting for a bit. What's your opinions on this, what we've just been talking about? Because I did ask Jason, but he muted his mic. But go on.
My opinions on which? On the coronavirus or the whole scamdemic of it?
Let's have a synopsis.
Go for broke.
Well, it is. First of all, it's a scamdemic. There's no such thing as a virus, because the virus. There's a lot of old people that are dying, and if you work the calculations on how many would die with this time of the year due to colds, flus, and everything else breaking their bodies down, and most of them people, I guarantee, have been taking the vaccine the last couple of years, and the vaccine time is breaking down the body. So even the system knows itself, coming to this time of year, they're going to have an X amount of deaths. Plus, on top of that, they're going to have a whole new wave, because if you're taking, say, a vaccine, they know for an old person taking a vaccine might have a lifespan of 5 or 6 vaccinations before the body breaks down. They have this well calculated out, and that's happening to the old folks. Plus the fact, old folks, they're not allowed to see their family. The fear factor, and fear is one of the things, the biggest things to break down the body system. So it is your immune system and that. So as soon as the fear system kicks in, that's why they call it scamdemic. If there is such thing as a virus, and the only way a virus can exist, a human virus in a human body will mutate to human, and it will not harm us, so it won't, because it's a solvent, it's soap, and it'll disappear in the end. It's not a live cell or organ or anything like that. It's not live matter. It'll go away. It's a solvent. So, but what the system do with the so-called viruses, and they introduce it through the vaccines. So like for years, the old folk, the elderly have been getting all these flu and influenza vaccines. Within them flu and influenza vaccines, I guarantee there has been more in them than just flu and influenza the last couple of years. You get animals, you get the virus off them. Animals have to detox their body just like us. And what it is protein after waste. Our body can't get rid of that GMO stuff and stuff like that. Our body can't get rid of it. First of all, our body will produce bacteria. Bacteria doesn't get rid of it. It'll produce a solvent, which is a soap, and we call that a virus because it goes via us. It's made within ourselves. The animals are the same thing. Their body has to detox, but they'll take the virus from that, the solvent from that, and they'll introduce it into their labs then, and they'll also, that's why they attach the live cells from humans and aborted baby cells and that, because it needs a hosting cell. It needs a cell to attach to. But it can't survive on a healthy immune system and cells that's healthy neither.
And that's the reason why it can't survive on these surfaces unless you touch it, it picks it up within that period and it can find a healthy cell.
Well, no, even if it's on the surface, because once it comes out in the air, it'll be gone. So you look at
it can't last.
Yeah, and there is, like, even if you say like spit or wet from your mouth and all that, well, there's no live cells in that. There's no tissue cells that reproduce. And that's what if a virus doesn't reproduce itself, it can't reproduce because it's not a living cell, it's not a living organ.
Yeah, I think it might be your Wi-Fi connection. Or are you plumbed in or Wi-Fi?
No, your main line.
Your sound's going again.
Isn't it strange, Paul, how the conversation has moved on the virus, how it's kind of moved away from China and it's kind of located now around UK and US. The conversation now is not, where did it come from? How was it released? Was it an accident? Was it intentional? Because I believe it was intentional, because I believe it was an attack on a 12 trillion gains economy. I think that's with the effect. Bring Trump's economy down, because that's the only way that globalism then can take over. Without that economy, free to flow, we stand.
Look back into the last few months and into the last show. Beginning of the last show at some point, even Russia Today news said that New York price of property was after collapsing below 1982 prices. And that was
We're not getting you, Paul. Paul, yeah. Getting you at all, though, mate. There's nothing coming through.
I think they attacked his economy, bro, to bring that 12 trillion economy to its knees.
Like I said, you're saying that they're doing it locally. What I look at from this country, Ross, was from the 19th of March, when they lowered it to a non-highly contagious infection, they locked us down the next day. In that period, the NHS was forgiven a £13 billion debt. And then whoever the partners were involved in all that debt, they all got a clean slate. And then Captain Tom walked round his garden and earned them 30 million pure profit. And then every time you clapped, text clap to donate £5. So the NHS was taken out of the taxpayers' hands. But when it fails, it'll be put onto the taxpayers who can't pay it anymore. And we won't be able to pay these debts when the economy collapses. We'll be done.
This is always the case, bro. Around disaster, there is always speculators. There are always speculators in there making money because the disaster is so easy to see. It's easy to see now coming. Soros, for instance. I mean, for me, I think we dodged a bullet at the general election because of the identity politics that Soros playing within British politics. And I think this is what it does. I think it does it globally. He goes around looking for disconcerted nations. He then starts, funding identity politics within and creating all these movements which give rise to socialism. Socialism spending, even though in a good-hearted manner it's done, generally is the key that unlocks the crash, because the crash will come when he goes short on the market and fluctuates the Eurozone.
Again.
That's what I think he was after doing. It's why I couldn't vote Labour, bro. I couldn't, because of the identity politics that were behind Labour at the time, because I felt like he was trying to trap us into the left field thinking of things. It's just.
Well, I come from a mining town, Ross. I come from a mining town that's always been Labour. It's Conservative at the minute. That's how disillusioned they were. I mean, I'm off the voters register. There's no way I'll take up this system again. I'm not voting for the lesser of two evils anymore. I'm going to watch this unfold. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try and inform as many people as I can, doing my small things like this. going into a shop with this T-shirt on that says the Webster Report, and people automatically strike up a conversation. And if they've got a mask on, even better.
Paul, I don't know why. I don't know why, for the life of us, we can't have a politics in this country that says we have 650 MPs. We can choose the hell who we like to run a department.
Why do they?
Why do they have to have a blue badge? Yeah. Why do they have to have a red badge? Look, he's good at that.
Well, it never used to be like that, did it?
He's good at that. Put him in office, and if he doesn't do a good job, throw him out within 12 weeks and put somebody else in. Yeah. You know, it's this divide of wearing the red badge and the blue badge all the time that the catches on, and it's because they know that generally we're all quite liberal people. Nobody really wants anybody else to suffer, so they attach these badges to it. And that's the problem with it. And look at the country for the last 4 years. It's been split down the middle over everything. And who's been investing in it all? Soros and his hedge funds. You know.
That's why you see BLM now over here. That's why you see the BLM in Germany. That's why you see the BLM in France. All creating the same situation from this black fella who was a career criminal, sticking a gun into the belly of a pregnant woman during a raid, and yet he's now on T-shirts and being pulled up as a martyr. I don't know what to say to these kids.
They're actually setting civil rights movement back to where it was in the 1950s and 60s by pulling all this, because
Definitely.
There were pockets of racism. I think there probably always will be.
Well, that's why I wanted Owen on for his take on this, because he handles racism in a completely different way to what people normally do, because he's grown up with it. He's grown up being called names, but it was a different era where even though people say it was acceptable and it shouldn't be acceptable, it wasn't made the big deal of what has created the fractures and the schisms that has now dissected the general public into bits.
I thought we had this race thing out of the way in the 1980s and the 1990s. I thought it were done then, because
I think it's because COVID didn't work, you know. I think that's why they've gone back. They've gone back to this because COVID didn't work.
Personally, I grew up in it. I grew up in a West Indian culture. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was the best thing. You know, the colour, the vibrancy, everything, carnival. It was all great. And we were all poor. That was it. Sometimes we called each other names. That was it. But this stuff we're done. This is now identity politics. This is Soros funding, you know, Black Lives Matter. Obama and, you know, Obama set up Black Lives Matter as a political front. It is because they're receiving, and the Democrats and the DNC are just receiving funding through these organisations. And I think that's what Corbyn was after doing, just setting up these proxy little groups that kept funding the party. Well, I don't want proxy funding. I want ideas on the economy. I want ideas on the next 10 years, the next 15 years, children's future, education. I don't want to listen to proxy politics, you know, protest politics.
These donations are not making it to the communities where they're needed the most. The Seattle community, it's been devastated. A lot of these people who've had businesses there are black business owners. Their lives have been decimated by these protests.
Yeah.
Why?
Sounds like Paul's got some sound there as well. Did you hear him smashing about then? Go on, finish your point, Paul. Become the Paul Cotty show, this.
Is the sound okay now?
Yes.
Boom.
Sorry about that altogether. I would actually have to go into a setting on your screen here, the yoke that you sent on to me. It says camera and mic. I went into a setting there, and somehow you heard me.
Brilliant. Anyway,
so apologies
where do you want to pick up from this, Paul? Because you were making a point before your sound went.
Yeah, well, I was making a point just purely on the scamdemic end of things, and I hear them on about the destruction over there in America. I actually put a post up there the other day about all that destruction. Who benefits from all that destruction?
Politicians.
I haven't been doing the radio. I used to do the radio for a while. Sorry?
CCP.
I used to do the radio for a while there, a couple of years ago, and then I stopped. Doing a lot of reading and stuff like that now, not just on the internet, with books and all this kind of stuff. And the stuff I came across recently there as well, I was looking into and all that old history. And I even watch one of the stations on that TV that everybody doesn't watch these days. Some stuff I'd watch on history and that. And I went into an interesting thing about America years ago and all that, and it brought me then thinking about Great Fire of London and all them sort of stuff. They were all deliberate, so they were to rebuild.
Yeah.
All deliberate, and even the cities in America and all that. I think it was New York, was it, at one time? There was fire as well. They get them to destroy.
Fire.
Yeah, fire. So the cities and towns, it's a great way to rebuild, but it's also a great way of developers to move in.
Yes.
You see, and that's what's happening. What's happening over? Sorry.
We see that in California, with the fires. There's a great opportunity now. Out of chaos. The phoenix rising from the ashes. Yeah, business will be moved straight in. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the businesses and all that, the system benefits, and it's always the system. The same way as when Paul mentioned China earlier on, like I used to watch a lot of Trump just to watch him say China, and then he switched to Hong Kong. But it's very interesting in what he does saying things. But you have to remember, he's a developer. That man's a business tycoon. And when I like going back into where they come from and families and stuff like that. So, but if anything that's going on out there, it's a game between two systems, and it's all about control. But it's all about the system. It's not one man. You can't blame it. Take Trump out of the picture, take any of them out of the picture, and the system will still survive. If you use violence against the system, well, they didn't put police and guards on the street and arm them up to the teeth for nothing. And then they've got another line of defense called armies and navies. And then they got the best weaponry and everything in the world. So if you rise up tomorrow, what are you going to rise up with?
Yeah.
The
That
system
was the first thing they did, wasn't it, to disarm everybody? That's the first.
Yeah, and they want the violence, and that's why what they're creating in America is violence, isn't it? And just like what they're trained, when the police or guard goes to arrest you, they're always telling you to calm down, even when you're questioning, calm down. You seem very annoyed. They're trained to get you annoyed, and their actions to be passive, it's like diffusing them.
Yeah.
But to rise, it's what all they have all been trained for, all their military and everything else. So it is. So the only way is through passiveness, but the passiveness should come through the family, to the members that's in there serving.
The problem is, history shows us that passiveness ends up being a Jew in ghettos.
Well, you see, one of the biggest problems is on the top of every system, nearly every military there is, and within every government, is people that's in control of this system.
But how do we break the system? This is the issue. How do we want to continue just going blindly down this system? Because is that living? Is that being a human being?
What you've got to remember is these people, these coppers, these army, this navy, they've all got families as well. They've all got people. Yeah. They're all going to be. It won't take very many of them to move and say, "Hang on a minute, just a second. This is my family's just been put into a camp or this, that, and other." Before you then you end up getting a military uprising, and we get probably some sort of dictatorship. But at least a dictatorship that's an open dictatorship would be better than. And I'm not endorsing dictatorships here, but an open dictatorship would be a lot better because at least then you know what you're living in. You know what you're living. Everybody knows. We all know that we're living in a dictatorship. And I mean, I've written down so many things that from what you've been saying before. I mean, Boris getting in, that was nailed on because they destroyed Corbyn. Corbyn helped him. He helped him tremendously. He was paid off, and he if he'd have stuck to his core values, he would have. He may have done something, but he didn't. He got away. He let the Blairites get their way, and they destroyed him from within. And so then you got we end up with Boris, and I think Boris was the last piece in the puzzle. It was December. We've got every little piece is in the places where they need to be around the world, and we get this coronavirus. We get this virus that first of all it's just something tittle tattle that's in in the newspaper and something, and then suddenly we're all on lockdown, and the economy's just been crashed over seriously. I mean, for God's sake. They say that the science is proven on climate change, but they won't do it or anything about it, right? They're not. I don't believe the science is proven on climate change, but that's what they'll say. But governments won't do anything about it. But on this one, suddenly there's this virus that's come from China, and the economy's gone. The economy is gone, and when you were talking about the economy, I believe that it's a ploy to get us back in, to keep us in Europe, because we're not out of Europe yet. We're in the transitional period, and so when it comes to it, we'll say it's this bailout that needs to happen is going to be so big. It's going to be too big for us as a single nation to do. Now, the European Central Bank are bailing everybody else out in Europe. So if we stay in Europe, we'll get bailed out by them, and then we end up in Europe, staying in Europe. That's my theory on the economy anyway. I mean, there's tons. Just look at the propaganda. Just look at it. In it together. That's what they keep saying. In it together. All these adverts coming on TV and saying we're in it together. We're in it together. And better together was the Remain. It was their logo. Remain at the time. Better together. In it together. I don't think that's a coincidence. There's just tons and tons of stuff there. You could talk forever, and I don't want to. I've got my own show. Everybody knows what my opinions are, and you Paul and Russell, you deserve a lot more time than I do. But I just a couple of things that I just want. Oh, and the other things as well. I'm just going to get the royal families. Anomalies. The anomalies with the royal family. It's incredible. Well, is that a diversion? What is it? Is it look here, over here, look what this is, or is it something? I just don't know. But I mean, it certainly were Prince Charles on the BBC. Don't know who that were. It was. I think it were more like Prince Charles' spitting image puppet.
It was Tommy Dick fingers. Do you not see his fingers? It was Tommy Dick fingers. That.
Can I pick up on one or two things there from Jason? You're right there, and it brings me back to what I was saying earlier on about the virus, and you brought in the collapse of the system. That brings me back into what I was saying earlier on when I kept getting cut off. The virus came about all right, but that was not the cause of the collapse of the system. The collapse of the system was going to happen anyway. And if you do look through history and as you were saying, reference to the Bibles and stuff like that, the Bible is a blueprint anyway, so it is. The Bible is like an encyclopedia. It's got the law in it, so it has. It's got the conversion of the law in it, and then it's got about sacred geometry and sacred geometry in the solar system. But it's got the blueprint of what they're going to do over so many years. The virus also that was the bogeyman for the collapse of the system. That's what that was. But that bogeyman was also used for a lot of other things, just like ISIS. And when the towers and all this kind of rubbish, it was to bring in new laws or legislations and to take away more rights, to put more corporate businesses in power and to break the smaller businesses. They brought in martial law. It was another way of bringing in martial law. It's the exact same as martial law. If you look at what the State Emergency Act, I think that's what I come in on. The State Emergency Act or something like that. And it's the same thing as what martial law is. It was just another legal way of bringing it in. And in America, you have the army out in the streets. Over here, there's not so much rioting and that. As I was saying earlier on, even with the so-called Black Lives Matter and all that, all the small towns have it, and it's all students from what I've seen, which is very directed and manipulated. You said Soros funds an awful lot of this, yeah, but Soros is only just a branch of the tree. It goes back deeper than that. Take him out of the equation and it'll still happen because the system would put someone else in to cover what he's doing. He's just looking after the sets.
I agree. There are other capitalists in there, yeah, like the royal family. Yeah, they're all making money, you know, not just Soros, but it is Soros that's playing the identity politics.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the thing that's destabilising us, because governments can't speak out about anything, because the moment they do, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you hate the planet, you're against the so you can't speak out about, because
government can't speak out because they're all part of the system. All governments are de facto, and they were all put into place so they were by the system, by the corporated system. Yeah. So even Rome itself is a corporated structure since the 1400s. So who's the shareholders behind that? If that's one of the biggest, most powerful banks, and your law systems actually come from there, it's the priests. It's a system within there that does all the law system and passes it over to America, and then goes into the curricular systems within the law societies and that. So who's the shareholders that control all that? Everything else is just puppets.
Well, we are certainly looking at those upper echelons that are puppeteering at the minute. Then it was like things like in this country where they've slammed the coronavirus bill that nobody's bothered reading. But when you realise that police who are now being signed up purposely, especially young police officers that are coming in now, they've got to go through uni, they've got to get a degree, they have to know this legislation verbatim so that they can start saying the law, which isn't the law, but they are going to believe that they can suspect a member of your family of having COVID, a strain that hasn't been isolated, that cannot be tested for, yet without any symptoms, a police officer can come into your property and detain child or adult on that grounds. And that has also affected the Mental Health Act, where it used to take two doctors to agree to section somebody. It's now one medical professional. And that's in place for 2 years. And again, 2 weeks ago, a 5 mile queue at IKEA, because they opened IKEA. 5 miles these idiots queued for. I used to love the hot dogs there, but not that much. And I certainly wouldn't want a cab in bed that much. And the mentality, they've surpassed themselves.
Well, you're right there with the laws and legislations. That's what it is, legislations that they're after bringing in. They can come in and they take the kids and all that. But if you look into the symptoms of COVID-19, all them symptoms is the symptoms of your influenza, your cold, your flu, if you had cancer, if you're at any high temperatures at all. Those symptoms of nearly everything that's out there, or that you're going to get naturally in your life when your body is detoxing or your body is being broke down over something. It's all the same symptoms. It's not a specific thing, this COVID-19 that they're looking for.
Well, the only thing that they've said about it is that it's a respiratory issue. So when people are having these respiratory issues and the airways are inflamed, they're stating that is the COVID strain, right? But the Italians, from doing autopsies, said that they found not only the airways had been closed, but there was a thrombosis. And they came to the conclusion that had they treated it differently and not followed the World Health Organization of slamming them onto ventilators that was going to kill them, if they'd have treated them with anticoagulants, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, full stop, these people who had underlying medical issues and were all elderly, not all of them may have died.
Why don't you give them purified water where dropped by carbonated soda, which creates oxygen within the body and brings the pH levels back up and creates new cells?
Because they want them dead. It's that simple. They wanted them dead. It was about a cult of elderly people. I was speaking to a couple of Italian lads in Lombardy, and they said to me that, Webby, you can't use our figures and compare it to yours. We live with our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents.
Yeah.
And that's how it was, like setting fire. How he described it was, it's like having a bone dry field and setting a fire. And whoosh,
Well,
just
that's
when.
how they live in China. That's why they got hit so bad in China, because they live like that too.
Well, you see,
So, what did we do? Sorry, Paul. What did we do here? All the people who were dying anyway in hospitals, we put them into care homes where Matt Hancock said live on television that under normal circumstances we lose 10,000 elderly people a month.
Absolutely.
So it's a cult, absolute cult.
We've been pulled apart psychologically, and I can't see how we get out of it with this ideology, with this thinking around Britain. Because I just see the conformity, and it's worrying. It really, really is worrying. I mean,
it only takes good people, doesn't it, Russell? It only takes good people to do nothing for evil to persist.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
The problem is that if
20 years, trying to warn people about this shit, and they're still queuing. It's mad.
Go on, Jace.
It's madness, but what you've got to remember is that you might think, you might know that COVID's bollocks. The person 2 meters in front of you might know that COVID's bollocks.
Yeah,
And the person 2 meters in front of them might know that COVID's bollocks, but they don't know that you know, and they don't know that you don't know that they know. So you don't want to invade their space and make them feel uncomfortable, because that's what some hypocrites do.
I know what you mean. It's very easy to talk about others like they've got the same Facebook wall as you, and that guy in front probably hasn't got the same Facebook wall. We look at different things. But the amount of lies that have been told, the misdirection, the changes of mind, it's not that difficult. Surely people see through it. Surely.
Is that your cat, Webby?
What, my cat barking? Yeah.
It's my dogs.
Oh, it's you, is it, Paul? Sorry.
It's the dogs, yeah, they're out the front there.
It's just that Watson's just.
I think we were meant to have this COVID, Paul, but I think Hillary Clinton was meant to win in 2016, and the COVID was going to jump us into a new financial system. I think that was what's supposed to happen. And then we run into the.
Oh, if Hillary had won, I'll tell you, if Hillary had won, it'd have been a different ball game by now. I mean, I remember a quote, Russell, when she said that she was caught on mic saying that if that bastard wins, we all hang. Sort this shit out.
It were an email.
Yeah. I remember hearing a conversation about it, but I remember it's been in the Podesta email. So
we would have seen the Obama camps. We would have seen, the unlocking of FEMA. We would have seen Homeland Security. Would have seen those coffins. You can only describe them as. We'd have seen them come into play, I think, and a violent civil war.
Very much so.
We would have seen a lot more school shootings, and a lot more lone shooters, a lot more data collection, and then for me, in would come the Chinese credits-based economy, based on data.
There's two major things.
There's no way out of that system.
Two major things are happening over here this week, and it's got to do with all this bloody COVID scam. And got to it was COVID, as I back earlier on, COVID scam brought in military law under a different name.
Yeah.
Over here during the week, there was 160. The Garda were doing 100, raided 160 places, and they were clamping down on drugs and gangs and stuff like that. But they were also backed up by the military.
Oh, dangerous.
Never before. Now, we haven't got a military, we have a defence force. But they were described in the papers backed up by the army. You see, Ireland has a defence force, and they're only supposed to defend the country. They're not even supposed to be abroad in other countries. So they were actually backed them up. So that's a major thing that people wouldn't realise of military law. And
that's what people don't realise about the martial law, Carry on, sorry, Paul.
And all the towns now is, when you're walking on the footpaths, it's all one-way systems.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that in Leeds this week.
Yeah, well, but people will conform. And you've got these guys, and they've got these people now, I can't think it was Maidstone, and they've employed 6 people that are going to be in town centre, and they're going to guide people, the way that they should be going. And I mean, if I were going along on my mobility scooter, going along there, and he told me to go one way, I'd sound like Madge off Benidorm. I'd be telling him to piss off. It's just completely and utterly ridiculous. But I wanted to bring up the Black Lives Matter thing. Yes, I can. I will. You will get yourself a refill. But this Black Lives Matters thing yesterday, the football season the football got back underway yesterday, right? And I had a grudging look. I've got one of them dodgy boxers, even though it was Sheffield United that were playing, and I'm a Sheffield Wednesday supporter. So I had a look at it, and then they were reporting the goal got Black Lives Matter on the back of the T-shirts. And then at a certain point, halfway through first half, they all just got down on one knee, and they all just stopped and all got down on the knee. And I thought to myself, I'm wondering what the fuck. And I thought, that's me done with football. I've got a season ticket at Sheffield Wednesday. I get 2 because I'm disabled, but I've got 2 seasons. I'm done with football. It's just with politics. I know politics has been in football since Hillsborough. But this Black Lives Matter thing, it's really ingenious because it creates victims on both sides. What it happens is you get people that Black Lives Matter. Well, obviously, then that infers that other people don't think that Black Lives Matter. Therefore, it makes victims out of people that feel like that. And then there's white people who then feel, well, doesn't my life not matter? And I can't say all lives matter, because if I do, I'll be considered a racist. Whereas we all know that that's true. But it creates victims on both sides, and you're never going to get. This is why, like I've said before, it's called race, because that infers it's a competition, all right, between different ones. It just this Black Lives Matter stuff. It just seems to have. It's just hit us, and I don't know. I can't work out whether it's to get us away from COVID, so that they can just whether they can just like sort of back out on all the stuff that they said for COVID, because we've got all these rioters on street. And by the way, I saw a video today that apparently there was a ruck between Black Lives Matter and some EDL in Gateshead or Newcastle over the weekend. And who turns up on Facebook? Who turns up on YouTube wearing a policeman's riot helmet?
No, I knew you was going to say him.
Lee Garrett turns up. He's got a police. I mean, for God's sake, you've nicked that hat, right? What's going to happen? You're going to get a knock on door because you nicked it out. And you go, oh, look at me, I've got my face mask. Oh, and this when I turn, oh, look at it, all this shit. You're an idiot. You've just admitted to stealing something on YouTube, and the police are going to be knocking, and you've nicked it from the police, and they're going to be knocking on your door. So anyway,
he was going to save us with the political party.
Exactly, save us now.
Back to your football and the kneeling. Everybody's kneeling down. But did you realise that that's a reference as well? That kneeling back to two brothers. One of them killed the other. Solomon's Temple. It's a Freemason yoke.
It's Hiram. It's the 3rd degree ritual of Freemasonry, taking the knee at Hiram Abiff's grave. They'd been pledging to Lucifer all this time, but that's symbols that people don't believe in. Yet you research somebody like Manly P. Hall, one of the most revered Freemasons ever, and you look at his teachings and his writings, and he says once the human race understands how to read symbols, they'll understand what this place is about, what this universe is about.
Symbolism is the language and all that. Geometry and symbolism is the language of the if you want to call them the elite or wherever the system that runs it. And you're back to Manly P. Hall. Yeah, he's very interesting. I actually read books of him. I have books and that. So his internet stuff is good, but his books are pretty good as well. Yeah,
it is. I agree.
Yeah,
what subject are we covering then now? Where do we want to go with this? We've discussed virtually everything, but there's so much more to come in, and I don't want to take over with the bills of exchange for another hour. So where would you like to go, Russell?
Let's have a look at how can we move forward? Because we seem to be stagnant, don't we? We seem to be telling each other we're all going to meet Armageddon, and we'll all just agree when we get there that we've got there. You know, are there going to be any safeguards? Are there going to be any checks and balances? Are there going to be any community projects? Any of that stuff that me and Jason Notter and Rachael try to set up with real change, where organisations start, because when they start talking, communities start talking. When communities start talking, it starts working, you know.
Well, that's what these podcasts were about, because I had a meeting yesterday where we were discussing not only legislation but constitutional law, whereas we groups that I've been in, we're talking about constitutional argument taken against, you know, some people have already put the constabularies on notice to the chief superintendents that you should be investigating this, you should be defending this, blah, 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 under oath and all this kind of stuff. Now, we know it's become corporatized and that's what they're hiding under. But for me, if you take a constitutional argument to the legislator, whose statutes and acts must be beneficial to every man and woman, it's going to the executive. Well, the legislator should be challenging the executive. Well, you're putting these regulations in here to make money, but you can only regulate businesses. So that means every man and woman is being treated as a business. That means every property is deemed commercial property because council tax is only applicable to commercial property. So you have to stop that system, and that's controlled by the banking system and the judiciary. That's what you've got to challenge first.
How do you do that though? How do you sectionalize that? Because I see it in the same kind of format as the China thing, you know, bringing a completely new system to the, well, it's not a new system, it's a very old system, but reintroducing, because that pre-existing system has to come down, and there's a lot of fallout from that.
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't say that. See, I've always had this opinion about this system. The system works perfectly for us if we know how to use it. And you know, the factor is, I'm taught from cradle to grave to pay my gas bill. That's a national debt that I've been registered with. I've got an obligation to that. But paying it in a debt-based economy is impossible. So because I've accepted those debts and I've then decided right, I'm going to take this job as part of this system, but I'll sort those debts out. I asked British Gas for that instrument that signs all that off. That was how easy it was. If we were all acting like that, that would mean, because I'd zeroed my national debt for that bill, I would lower national debt and there would be no austerity because interest wouldn't be getting added. But every time we pay with a cash, debit, whatever, every time we promise, interest gets added. So the system would work perfectly, but we've got to take back the printing of the currency to the Treasury, which means every man and woman who's being voted in would have to come back to the local levels. You brought it up, you hit on it earlier, Russell, when did this blue badge, red badge stuff happen? Well, it happened when they were all getting kickbacks and getting handshakes and these hereditary peers that we've got to get rid of. You mentioned about getting a king, right? I don't want a king. I don't want a king. I can rule myself. I've got one king, and it's not a man. And this system would work perfectly if we got a grip of it. That's why I wouldn't take this system down for something else, because that's what they're bringing in, and they want it cashless. I speak to criminals every day, and the drug dealers going, they can't do that because if we don't deal our drugs, the government will lose money. I went, they're not interested in that. They've got everything they need because there's no such thing as this money. You just can use your cash. Once your cash is gone,
I think they're desperately moving as well to the credit space. I think, are we going to see cash come back? I'm not sure we are.
No, not if they get that chip in you, mate. That's what they want you in.
I mean, that's a further step away. You know, if we allow them to take us to a cashless society, and I can see that psychologically feasible at the moment in the UK.
Definitely so.
People would.
Definitely so.
You know, I remember the warnings going out about pay by iPhone, pay by your phone. Do you remember those warnings? And then it seemed pretty cool to do. And then it was very cool to do. And then everybody's doing it now. You know, it's sold as being cool.
I don't pay for anything by phone.
And if they come at us through this tech, through the kids, we're on an hiding. We're on an hiding to nothing because the kids want the tech. You know,
I know that's the problem. They said they've sold it to the kids easily. Paul, what do you think about the cashless society?
They're pushing for it and they're going to get it. But the way things are going, they've started over here. Homebase, which is an English store, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Homebase over here is already started. You can't do anything shopping there without it, so you can't.
Well, actually, are you Northern Ireland?
Southern Ireland.
Southern Ireland, it might be different though, but in this country, they must have a till with legal tender in it. They can't refuse my cash. They've got to open one till. I've done it in Asda. I've opened a till in Asda. I want a cash register. They have to have by law, as long as there's cash, and that is classed as legal tender, they must open that till. But people are in such a rush. People want to get there, get away from all these fucking idiots who are wearing masks that don't work. There was a great meme that I posted earlier on in the week. I forget who I got it off. And it was a man on one side of a chain link mesh fence and a woman on the other side. And the woman had a mask on, stating, I wear this mask to keep the coronavirus out of my body. And the man is saying, I'm building this mesh fence to keep the mosquitoes out of my yard. Yeah. And I can understand people wanting to get away from people like that. But they're putting us in a position, like you were saying, Paul, where how do we stop this? And Russell's asking the same question. Me and Jason have said so many times, how do we stop this?
How do we
3 months, it's been, what the fuck's going on?
They have to come to realise that. I saw a post, just a generic post on Facebook the other day. It was about a mother that had just spoken to a child, and she said, and the child had said to her that the reason people don't like conspiracy theorists is because we bring them down. Now, I can understand the psychology in that, but where are we bringing you down? What have you got?
Where do we
Someone
start?
And it only brings you down because it's been a constant 20-year cycle, you know, of having to go through the same old stuff again to get to people to listen. And they only take snippets and snippets and snippets and won't put the whole... I mean, when this thing breaks, I think there are going to be people out there that just freak out.
Oh, definitely. And I think we're closer to it than what people think. Like I said about the bailiffs coming in October, the Bank of England published something today saying that they're pumping 300 odd million into the economy to save us. They can't lend us anything. They're bankrupt, so they're facilitating our credit. So that 300 million is going to get added to the debts. Those debts cannot get paid if the economy starts to shut down because businesses have gone, jobs have gone. So they are setting up everything they want for the New World Order orgasm. And they wrote about it forever. And people have come up to me now, guys, people who purposely, 10 years ago, purposely would see me go out of the way to get some tin foil to put it on their head and walk past me at work and go, Webby, Webby. Those same people sit next to me now and say, what do you think of this, Webby? You were talking about this. And I said, I only read the wish list. I only read what they wish they could do. And we've all allowed it. It's that simple.
It was just, again, there was nothing oracle about it. We were only just, all of us were just only repeating information that we'd heard from other. That was it, wasn't it? It was an information swap of ideas.
We were reading, and yes, we were reading and sharing information.
Yeah, I mean, if that...
Jason always brought up a good point about years ago when we didn't have all this kind of caper, and Jason was using the old 9/11 forums where things would just get all discussed and there was information and videos and everything coming from everywhere. And some of the groups I'm talking with now, they're setting up groups, and I've said I can stream the odd podcast and you can advertise on here, and these are now going local. I know quite a few are building up down south that I've been in touch with. There's a few over, a few around my area, and I know there's always been stuff going on over the other side, the wrong side of the Pennines. So it's about connecting now, and it's about, this is why this round table was. I mean, I'm a bit outweighed here. I'm on the right side of the Pennines. Paul's in a different country. But we're all talking and we all have the same premise, we all have the same mindset that we don't want this to happen. We've all done bits, we've all worked, we've all gone physically out and done something. We've not just sat around and ummed and ahed. But I've got to the point now where I believe that the 100th monkey syndrome is there, but it's not going to be for everybody. If you've not got eyes to see this, nobody's going to be able to convince you. What do you think, Jason?
Well, when you were talking about how we get out of this, I mean, as far as I can see, well, I've written it down, actually. I said we've got two options, right? We can run at it like a bunch of Neanderthals, run at this dragon with 1,000 heads, like a bunch of Neanderthals, and try and slash and slash and slash and take it down, right? Option two is we can let it die itself, which we know inevitably it will do, right? And we know that it will die itself, but you see, what we need to do is we need to have some sort of tactics, some sort of ways and means to exacerbate that, to speed that up. If we can find some way that we could, the tactics, that the way that you could try to make the end come faster. I think that's the answer to it. We think it's probably all going to end in violence, and if it ends in violence, they don't win. It doesn't matter what they've got, right? They do not win because the people they are setting on all the public have got family and friends, and they just won't accept it. So if it comes to violence, we win. It's as simple as that. But it takes there is going to be a certain amount of blood lost before it gets to that tipping point where they're saying, well, hang on a minute, I've just had a phone call, my brother's just been killed. He's been shot because he were, a metre away from an armed guard stood outside Tesco's. And I'm not having this. And he's going to put his weapon down. And, and it's going to continue, and it's going to continue. We just have to exacerbate it. We have to find ways. We have to find techniques, things that we can do, small things that we can do, like you were talking about, Webby, locally. Things that you can do locally, and the simplest thing. I mean, wear a T-shirt that says, "I'm okay with not being 2 meters away if you are," and just have a T-shirt printed and put it on. And that's it. But I'll stay away from you if you're threatened. So just little things like that. So where you can then identify other people. Someone will come along and say, I don't think it's very good. I mean, like I said, the 3 people in front of you might think COVID is a bunch of bullshit, but they don't know that you know. So they can't then strike up a conversation.
I think you're right.
With you because they're too far away, and they don't really want to talk to you because the spit might meet in the middle and then create another massive virus that takes over all the Tesco's, and all Tesco's drops dead at what it's just ridiculous. So we need some way, because I know that we need some way to identify each other. So locally, we can get together, even if it's just like this, because they, just talking. Yeah,
I agree. I do. Sorry, go.
I was going to say, generally, when I first came onto the scene, as it were, on Facebook, I used to suffer a lot with people who they know a whole load of stuff, and then you ask them questions, and they tell you to go off and do your own research. Well, where the fuck do you start? I think when we're talking to other people on Facebook, those who are, jumping on the liberal platforms, we should take it back to basic when we're talking about stuff like coronavirus and immune system and where the donations are going for Black Lives Matter. And not make it too complicated, because that's when I find people get lost and they lose interest and disappear. So although what you said about coronavirus and cells, Paul, was really interesting, I understood it. My neighbour wouldn't have a bloody clue, but if I could simplify it for her and then she'd maybe go and look a bit further into it, she would maintain her interest.
It's really difficult though, isn't it? Because
not to dumb it down, just to make it more basic so that everybody's going to understand it.
Yeah, that was exactly how I had it relayed to me. That if you pick up an infection, your body deals with that infection to get rid of it. That could end up where a virus is created if the immune response just doesn't do it.
It's a body detoxing.
Both of your best immunity. Your fingers. That'll do your job. That'll do your job for you.
I spoke to an immunologist who said, from cradle to grave, you're as a baby, you crawl, you put shit in your mouth, and your body goes, oh, that's shit, we're going to have to deal with that. And now what we've done is we've covered ourselves up, locked ourselves away, no vitamin D. Oh, but vitamin D can stop it. We've been bamboozled.
I think we've cleaned ourselves too.
It's that simple. We've been hoodwinked. Oh, look who's turned up in the bloody chat room, Jason.
Sorry, say that again. Owen. Oh yeah,
look who's bloody turned up in the chat room.
He's just put a message in the group, Facebook Messenger group. So he's broke down. Oh no, and that's another thing I wanted. You said you wanted a perspective on, like the Black Lives Matter and how he perceives race. I will tell you, what I do. He has said on our show that when 9/11 happened, he said he felt a weight come off his shoulders because now we're Muslims. It was the turn of the Muslim people to be. So it must have racism. We know that racism is going to exist, and as Rachael said earlier on, it's always probably going to, in some one way or it always is. In one way or another, he's always going to get some bozo who don't like somebody based on.
I can't any part of history that says it doesn't exist. History tells it for thousands of years it exists.
Yeah, but it's in small pockets. It's not on the mass scale that they're trying to make out it is now. Russell's been friends with a tall black guy called Derek since primary school. He comes around our house to play chess. When he comes through the door, it's Derek. It's it's not. That's it. I just see Derek.
It's political racism.
Racism is a load of shite just to divide us. Because thousands of years ago, man moved around, and it wasn't race that came into it. And even if they want to go into slavery and all that, it's different with it's used in a political scale massively. I've experienced racism when I was in London when I was a youngster. I spent my teenage life in London, so I did. I had all the Irish bullshit. I was actually in a young offenders jail over there, so I experienced the bullshit of racism even more. But a lot of my mates then, by the time I came out of there, were black or English, so they were. And even up to this day, a lot of my mates would be, Nigerians and everything else. I've been to Nigeria. I had a where little black kids are pulling out their father looking at me the same way as it would have been experienced the opposite way over here, so it was. But even in Nigeria and in places like that, I was never racially abused or anything like that. They don't talk about racism or anything. It doesn't come into the whole equation. Not many of them have tellies and shit like that. But bring the same people then into Europe. Watch that little kid grow up and watch the racism thing coming in then through the media, through tellies, through everything that we're taught. But the parents will come over here to try and benefit that child.
I was talking to Rachael about this.
That makes sense.
Yes, it did.
I grew up in the 1970s, and there used to be a parlance right across the country. And it could not be, because do you remember the TV shows like Love Thy Neighbour and everything else, where it was quite openly dialogue racist. So then we started seeing culture school. It was just a transitional period. When you start putting loads and loads of people together, especially if they're poor, there's going to be some friction. Now, what the politicians like to do and the media like to do, they say, well, that friction's racism. But it's not. It's just loads of people that are poor together, have-nots, and it creates an environment where I want, you ain't got. That's just life.
I've got a mate who's his wife's quite a bit younger than him. He's 49, my mate, but he showed her on YouTube an episode of Mind Your Language. Do you remember Mind Your Language?
Yes.
Wow, she made him turn it off after 10 minutes. That's racist. You can't watch stuff like that. That was primetime television at tea time on a Saturday afternoon, on a Saturday tea time. We'd sit there and we would laugh our heads off at that, because there was quite a few times where, do you know what, the stupid teacher who's obviously white English against all these people from all these other ethnic backgrounds, and he looks the idiot, so I'm laughing at him as well. And other people would share that laughter. But when people start going, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's racist. You start to sow seeds. If you start funding stuff around that, like what we're seeing now, then you can get football hooligans coming challenging black people over statues. I don't know. What do you say to these people?
How old are you, Paul?
48.
51 next week.
Right, so we all grew up round about the same. I mean, you remember when we were kids and we were just knocking about in the summer? It was great. And then they say, you know, with all these races, just look at the country. The country's so diverse, so colourful, but they say it's racism. Look at it. Football, sports, you know, media.
Even politicians.
It's so... I don't see where they see this. You know, everybody's a racist. Society's so diverse. It's like Babylon. You know, it's...
If society was so racist, Michael Jackson, Beyonce, Jay-Z, they wouldn't be earning the money that they do and have the status that they have.
It's a political talking point, isn't it? It's something.
Of course it is.
You know, it's something that's raised for the country to just get more identity politics, get more of a voting base, get more funding. Because this funds, it's all funding. You know, all these identity politics, they're all getting funding from people. You know, they just don't want the funding to run out.
Well, this is what the problem. This is the problem that we've got, because we're not only just looking at the Black Lives and the races and that kind of stuff. Ben Gilroy did a live feed this morning where he was parked outside a couple's house they'd had the home robbed in 2011, yet the home hasn't been sold. It's still stood there. They're campaigning to try and change all this. Obviously, Ben has been into the banks and the courts with the banks, just like many of us have. But the problem being is the judges are selected there as political figures. So they've circled the wagons, and that is why now, as you've said, as Russell said very early doors, that it's got to go down to that violence. Jason said it's inevitable. People just get to the point where you can't draw blood from a stone. Me and Ben were always joking about, we were talking about the potato famine on one interview, Paul, and he was going mad about it. He says, fucking potatoes, we fucking had everything. What's it? They were raised, they were slaves. The British were genociding people all around the world. There was no racism. It was about control. It was about money. They earned all this money from the drug wars with China. They've all done these handshakes. They're all in this together, and they're bringing a chaos. Well, they're going to make an order out of that chaos.
Right. Here's one for you. To stop over here, right? For the system and for history. History is absolutely inside out, upside down. And I mean that on a massive scale, more so than people realise.
Yeah, very much.
The whole system, before Rome came into existence, there was a system known as the Church of Isa. And with the Church of Isa, or I think it was Isa, IESR, I think that's how it's spelled. I'll send on the information about it. And under that Church of Isa, there was a Pope. And that Pope sat over here in Ireland, in a place called, they tell us the Hill of Tara is where the High Kings of Ireland sat. But you've also heard the New Grange, which is older than the pyramids. Well, that's where the Church of Isa sat, and the Roman, or the High Pope that sat there. He was a High Pope King. This is long before England came into existence, Rome, and the whole system of today. Under that system, throughout the whole world, under the Magi, or under the Pope, you had the Magi priest. You hear the Magi priest in certain parts of history. You'll hear them in the Bible, they'll reference the Magi priest and stuff like that. And the Magi priests were men of knowledge and stuff. The Magi priests went round the world, and you'll also hear different cultures on about men that arrived here years ago, and tall men, long hair, and stuff like that. And a lot of languages throughout the world refer to the old language of the Gaels, the old Gaeltacht language, the language of the Gaels. and that was spread all
Yes.
over Europe and everything else as well. The kings of England was an outpost of Ireland at one stage, so it was. And it's only when Rome started forming over around Italy, and then there was one in France, or it might have been the opposite way around. The two of them emerged, so they did. And there was a 1,000-year war or something like that between Rome and the old empire that existed back then. Now, the old empire under the high king or pope that sat over here in Ireland under the Magi priest that went round the world teaching civilization. And when I mean civilization, they taught them the arts, science, agriculture, mathematics, how to fish, how to build, and that's where most of our buildings come from now. And all the way into that would have been all the way around, and then thousands of years later into the pyramids. You'd find the shapes of buildings changing all the way. But not only were them buildings, they weren't just buildings actually. They were sites where they taught knowledge. They were schools. That's more or less what they were. They also had free energy going all the way around. Most of these buildings you'll see around the world are conducted on 3 different types of stone. And that's all energy, so it's just like your electric wires. You'll find there's a quartz stone, a sandstone, and I think it's a limestone that's in them. And they'd be either on the base of them on different levels. And it'd be the same with the pyramids as well. The outer stone has gone off them, so it is. And inside the pyramid, you've got your quartz stone, the big boxes to tell you. It used to be the coffins of the pharaohs. And then they were too big, they told you it's the cows then, so it is the sacred cows. Well, they're actually big quartz stone, and quartz stone gives off radiation. Radiation gives them energy. So they knew how to create all their own energies and everything else. That was taught thousands of years ago. We had a system more advanced than what we have now, even though it looked different. You know, with knowledge and stuff like that. And when Rome came into existence anyway, they brought a whole new system. And they brought the Latin language and all that kind of stuff, so they did, which is a bastardized language. And into that came your French, and then came your English, what we have today.
I get you. I've even seen in.
They took the whole system and converted it.
Yeah, they found in South Wales, they found a sarcophagus, and they thought it was Egyptian writing, but they couldn't read it from Egyptian hieroglyphs. But when they read it in Welsh, or ancient Welsh, not just Welsh, when they used that, they understood it as if the language had come all round. So this is what you're saying. This history is completely turned upside down. If you haven't got questions, you're not thinking.
No.
You're really not.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. And I was back to, so Ireland and England, we've been more or less bastardized from Europe. Like the England was, before it was known as England. England is a compound word anyway. So it is Anglo. It should
Angloland.
Angloland, yeah. But that's what they say, which has got to do with the Anglo-Saxons and all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Angloland, yeah. Anglo-Saxons, yeah. That's
Is
where
that
East Anglia, east of Anglia.
But that's when Rome was after taking over and started converting it all then, so they did. And moving a lot of the Europeans, all the French nobles moved in, they changed their names to English titles and stuff like that. But that was pushing out an old system that existed beforehand as well. But that's back to what they're doing today, is pushing out an old system. They created a virus, caused chaos and everything else to bring in a whole new system.
Nothing new under the sun, is there, Paul?
No, there's nothing new. I don't even know what to say about them, to be honest.
Exactly.
I was going to say they've bastardized everything, and that's about. Well, actually, it's not a regular bad word at all, bastardized, but they've bastardized everything from our language, our history. You know what I mean? Like our history of who we are, not just the land and the cultures and everything else. But it's just the same thing, whether it was kings and queens fought each other to take over land, and then with now they all converted into incorporated businesses then, so they did. Just like Rome and all that.
And they use those businesses now to fight with each other to create land and take stuff. There's nothing new.
Well, you see, because everything's corporate business and everything else, it brings us back to what you were on with Constitution there and the law and all that. The Constitution that the actual system use is the Commonwealth Constitution. You see, forget all the other constitutions. We have 5 of them over here and use them so many in other countries. The system as one, they're using the Commonwealth Constitution over us. And what you use then is public policy as well. Public policy is the law, and the Constitution is the Commonwealth Constitution to go by.
Yeah.
Well, I'm lost. Completely lost.
Would that be a first? Would that be a first, guys? I said, would that be a first that you're completely lost?
No, I don't think so. No.
Dave Iron has just posted in the chat room, non-compliance would do it, which would, but to get people to not comply, it's like trying to convince somebody that they've been fooled. It's easier to fool somebody. And
the whole idea is non-compliance means not to refuse neither.
Yes, exactly. It's somebody was posting that there's going to be protests again this weekend in London, and that they were going to go down. In fact, in legal, protest is legal acceptance. So it's like when you tell your child that they're going to bed, they've got a right to protest and stamp their feet and say no, 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 and cry. But guess where they end up? In bed. And that is what a protest is. They wouldn't let us do it if it worked. It's the same with voting. Voting doesn't work because they control the 2 parties that are only ever going to get in. And those parties agree on everything that we don't know about, and they argue about everything that we do. There's nothing new. That would change if our politicians actually worked for the communities and didn't go and live in London and take all these kickbacks. We could take the banking system. We could get the Treasury to print notes at the credit of the nation. But the trouble is they have disemboweled this nation. We've got charity shops that are shutting. We've got pound shops that are shutting. We've got small businesses that aren't going to open again. And everybody's going online. They don't want you out your house. And people have just complied. So I agree, non-compliance would. But the people are very, very far down this line.
I was going to give you a thing about the masks there. A very good conversation with people that are wearing these masks and all that. Bring it back into a health issue again. We breathe in oxygen, which is water particles in the air. If you've got a mask on, and a mask is supposed to stop spits or tissues from someone else's body, isn't it? How do you breathe in water particles from the air to create oxygen within the body?
Yeah.
And then again, you're breathing out carbon monoxide. So if the water particles can't come in, or nothing can come in, where does the carbon monoxide go that you're breathing out?
Straight back in. And then your body will have an immune response because it's worried that your CO2 levels aren't going down.
And then you get dampness on the lungs and stuff like that, and harder to breathe and everything else. You get all the symptoms of COVID. You get all the symptoms of COVID-19.
Exactly. How convenient that is. How convenient. And again, this is all what happens when we start talking, because, you know, I've somebody I've interviewed today before has been on a bus today, and the bus driver said, you need to put a mask on. He says, well, I can't because it causes this. And the people who were listening to him on the bus took the masks off.
Sure, come here. If masks were right, I said it to a couple of friends there a while ago. I used to do acupuncture years ago. And the first thing you do when you do acupuncture with needles or anything like that, you put them into the sharp spots. And that's sealed up. And somebody with a license has to take that away to incinerator. Now, reason being, in case of any viruses or anything else that might survive on the needles. Mm-hmm. So, again, if you're in jails or anything like that, you'll find if you can get a razor off them, that goes into the sharp spots. If you're in the hospitals, any of the tissues or anything they use, the tissues people go into bags, they're sealed properly, tied up. Sharps goes into one thing, all off the incinerators. Where's all the drop-off points for the gloves and the masks?
Well, they're in the ocean because they seem to be finding a lot of them in there.
Is the government not spending millions on all the drop-off points? I should have come up with that for them.
No, that's a money laundering exercise, that, mate. That's like the track and trace app. It's just a money laundering exercise.
I should have started off a company to dispose of all them stuff for the people.
I was thinking about the track and trace app, Paul. What if that track and trace app?
Track and trace, people don't even realise there's track and trace going on in their clothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been in place already. But what if they needed extensive powers to actually track?
Actually, for bringing up the track and trace, a friend of mine, one of the Lithuanian lads was telling me they did watch the Russian stuff or East Europe stuff, so they filled me in on that as well. And in Russia last week, some of them signed up for the track and trace. They were diagnosed COVID-19. To go back to work or go back out after quarantine for 2 weeks, you had to sign up for track and trace. If not, they were going into quarantine again or something like that. They didn't want to do anything, so they ended up giving in and going into the track and trace. In the track and trace, you need to know where you are at all times and stuff like that. And
now it's just all stopped because it doesn't work.
Well, here's the best part. On the track and trace or the app that's supposed to be going about in Russia or wherever it is, apparently, this is what I was told, they got a fine in the door a couple of days later for breaking social distance while they're on this track and trace. They're signing a whole set of contracts for rules and regulations of social distance and everything else, which leaves you open for fines.
So what happens when everybody's been tracked and traced?
What happens?
It's the capitalist society, then, isn't it?
What happens?
Well, you see, the only people that are going to track and trace is the ones that aren't.
Negative. How do we divide those? You know, because if we have a track and trace and it says, well, you're positive, and you're negative, and you're negative, and you're positive, and you can't go near them again, and you can't go near them again.
Right. Well,
get on that bus. Get on that bus and get into that camp.
Well, just as I said there, if it's a track and trace,
come from it. That is the ideology that will come.
Yeah. Go on, Paul. Finish your point there, pal.
If it is a track and trace system and if it's going to bring fines for breaking social distance and everything else, that's just pure martial law. You know, it's again. The track and trace will tell whether you're going up one way of the street or the wrong way of the street.
Yeah, and I've already seen photographs today where they've closed roads off to widen them for social distancing. This is all about conditioning. The mask thing and the kneeling, all about conditioning. The factor is, it's the fear that the spirit of fear. I've never ever seen it in the general public like I have today. And now my mum grew up during the war, and I never heard my mum say anything about people. She grew up in Liverpool where it was bombed quite a bit. She never had any fear. We just got on with it, you know. There's none of that. We're a bunch of pussies. Sycophantic pussies.
Yeah, do you know what it's going to be like? I'm going to be sitting here. It's going to be like me sitting here next year looking at a screen, a racing track. You know, the old ones with the little dots running around it. And next, a red one going off, bleep, 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 because it's going the wrong way around the track. And I'll just punch in a little thing there and I'll see who it is. And bleep, there he goes. Fine sent out to him. Yeah. That's what it's going to be, like little cars flying around the track. And anybody goes the wrong way, fines.
So
you can see it coming, can't you?
Will we obey as a population to the rules of that track and trace? Because if we're going to obey as a population to that track and trace, are we then going to obey to be told what time to go to work, what time to eat, when to go exercise, when to go do whatever? Are we going to be just as obliging with the track and trace in those areas. I think they will. I'm afraid, I'm a little frightened that the general public will go along with it. And they've only got to
I think you could well be right with that.
They've only got to get it one generation in, one child, you know, get one generation of children through, and it'll just be a normality.
Well, listen, guys, we've done an hour and 55 minutes coming up for anyway. So we've covered a lot of points today. Like I said, I'm going to try and do these roundtables with different people regular if we can. But any final points to finish off? Russ, Rachel, what are you were thinking of doing back the green screen and doing a few shows? Explain to people where they may or still can find you and look at your work, because I do remember the Jimmy Savile YouTube video. That was a very popular video. I know it's been taken down. I've got it downloaded somewhere, but just give us a brief thing about where you're up to, pal.
Well, as I say, I'm thinking about getting into, because I find the whole Facebook thing a little bit muddled at the moment. I find the woke thing is it's too new. It hasn't got the experience to deal with the geopolitical preference that we have now. It hasn't got any knowledge to draw on. But I can't communicate so much over Facebook. It's too much text, you know.
Yes.
So I think I'm going to go back to green screen. And I think I'm just going to, like you say yourself, rather than not promote anything or promote myself, just promote some ideas of where we can alleviate some of these issues, because I think a lot of these issues online for people are coming from the information that they're getting and where they're getting that information. I think that's throwing a lot of confusion into there. So I'm hoping to come and do some Trump stuff. I'm hoping to do some more stuff back on the origins of, you know, the abuse structure that was set up in the UK. I'm hoping to do 2 or 3 videos and see where things lie from that point. Getting them done is the issue, though.
That's where
Good stuff. That's where you come in, is it, Rach? Well, if you've still got a copy of that, or if you've still got a live link to it, send it me, Russ, because I'll download it so I've got it. Because that documentary, The Ninth Circle's a cracking documentary. So I look forward to listening to some of the Trump stuff, because, like I said, I base it on evidence. I've heard about all the hearsay, and that's not taking anything away from it. But as everything stands, there's hearsay everywhere. So I look forward to that. Paul, what have you got in? Say again.
Can I just say, as a last point to finish on that Trump thing?
Yes.
I just want to say to those people out there that we've done some serious groundwork on this stuff. Yeah. We can take what MSN is saying is nothing in context to what actually is being said as a framework of an administration, not just an interview, not just as the entire framework of the institution. I want people to understand that, you know, it's okay wanting to fight the system and be a warrior, but don't get sucked into the media as well, because that can be just as detrimental to the old epoch of things and the old thinking of things. That it can be quite. And I just want people to just understand that allegations lead to mindsets lead to movements. You know,
Exactly.
It's quite dangerous. And give him the benefit of the doubt, because I can tell you the grassroots policies that are going on there are absolutely staggering for communities.
Oh, I have to say he's made some moves. He has made some moves. I'm not disputing that at all, mate. Not at all.
But I also agree. I can understand how people don't like him through his oratory skills. I can see, especially if you just take parts of them
I love his oratory skills. Have you not seen Metal Trump on YouTube, where they take all different bits of it and put it to metal music? It's great, mate. And then he comes out with China. That's ace. I love him, me. I think he's a proper entertainer. He's an entertainer. I'm interested in what's going on. Paul, what about you? Where are you looking to be? Are you just going to carry on laughing at everybody and doing your little bits, or have you got anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, I've got a new book and a new movie coming out now. Like fuck, no, I haven't. Just sitting back, watching Lenin still.
Yeah, as we all are, Paul.
The thing is, like, I still do that. I could like going into an awful lot of reading and research on a lot of the old stuff and the whole system and all that. To me, everything that's going on at the moment is just for show. It's a big show, whether it's Trump, Russia, China. It doesn't make a difference because they're not talking about the people that runs the system.
Trust me, it's going to
make talk about each other. They're allowed fight amongst each other, just like the royal jails. They can fight each other for power, but the people in behind it that gave them that permission in the first place is not being talked about.
Yeah.
So it's just
go on. Let's finish up, Paul. Go ahead.
It's who sits at the big board table at the end of the day for the shareholders.
Yeah, I agree. Jason, any final points from you, brother?
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you for inviting me on, mate. It's been a pleasure. It's different being, this side and, not having the responsibility of trying to keep us together and try to get, people into conversations and stuff. Like, I know you really, really struggle with tonight.
You're bleeding over each other. See, I've just done it to you. We bleed over each other, and because it's not instantly live. It's we just make do with what it is. But we get together, we have a laugh. We have to laugh at this stuff. If you can't laugh at this stuff, don't bother looking at it because you're going to dig your own grave. Throw yourself in it, and stay there. It's going to be one of those. I think there is a grassroots. This woke thing, what Russell was talking about, I agree with him. The woke thing, you can't be woke if you think that you should still pay for your gas. And I noticed, don't think I didn't notice, Jason, that you put the Webingo comment in the chat room, because I did.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, guys, we'll call in. Hey?
Can I plug my show on Monday?
Of course you can. I also need to know what happened to Vinny Eastwood.
It turned up. It was all right.
I started watching it and you weren't on. Vinny Eastwood weren't on, so I thought he not turned up. I'll have to go back and have a look at it.
No, he went all right. I had to dig him out of a hole a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that if there were any like Vinny Eastwood people that wanted to put videos together, there's a part of that show that they could pick up on and really make a fucking meal of. But I tried to dig him out of that hole. But apart from that, it went okay. It went all right. Good stuff.
Go on, what's happening Monday, mate?
Monday, yeah. I'm just gonna say I'm doing one show next week. Hopefully Owen will be with me as well. I'm just doing one show next week. I'm doing it on Monday because I said to my wife, I said I owe you. In fact, I said I owe us some time, so I'm going to take that us time because I've done 3 shows this week, and anyway, so I'm just going to do one show. I've got Matt Conspiro. He does a blog and he's a massive Beatles researcher. He researches into he's a friend of Mark Devlin's. He's been on before, and he's going to be telling us all the stuff, the really new stuff about the Beatles and how they are. What he's uncovered about them. You can find his blog just at Matt Conspiro. I think it's Conspiro Media. His blog. So that's on our Monday show. And thanks again, Webby, for inviting me on. It really has been all right, really good.
No, really enjoyed it. Anyway, we'll call it a night there. Thanks to everybody who's turned up. Russell, Rachael, brilliant getting back in touch after all this time. It seems a lifetime ago since I was at Leeds with you. I think we can get this stuff going more. Once Russ is up and running, give me a shout. I'll put the stuff on my page and put it onto the Beat the Banks and all that kind of stuff, where people who are struggling with debt, who do want to find solutions, but the ones who don't want it done for them, because I've always said that I don't mind talking to people, I don't mind helping people, but you can't do this stuff for people. It puts you in a grave. Doing it just for myself was bad enough. You know, my story's quite well documented for the states that I've been in. And, you know, we're looking to start to put this stuff right, and we can only do our little bit. So that's the end of the show. I may be back with a show over the weekend, possibly, but I have got a show next Thursday, and I've muted Jason's mic because he'll shout at me for the guest I've got on. I'll tell you after, son. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice catch up. It's been years since I've spoken to the guy, and I'll put the advertisement together and I'll do a short video to advertise it. Thanks for everybody who's watched live, and if you're watching it post show and you're just catching up with stuff, just ask yourself a question: what the fuck is going on?